I guess so.
Hi, Terry.
Oh, Terry's here.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, there's Barbara. Oh.
Hi.
She's 101.
What?
Dark
Oh,
as
Too many people.
Oh,
Oh,
and Hallis.
there she is.
Wow, and Hallis. Oh, there's a good crowd here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Like a church council size of gathering. You know, my former church, regular Sunday worship attendees around 70 to 80. And the surprise of this church, just one single senior activities more than 50. I'm so glad that you make your time available today and to join us this morning. Well, Terry Morrison will introduce Pastor Kathi to us, but before we come to that moment, I just want to welcome you this morning.
Yeah, it's up there.
You know, we know that as a person of faith, life is not an accident. So our relationships in our church that we belong and we cherish, and the time that we share together is a blessing, and there's reason for gratitude as well. That's our part of faith as well. Pastor Kathi is a blessing to you and to me and to our church.
It's screechy. My earphones are so good. They pick up a high pitch. He's a high pitch.
How about, Jung, if you ask everyone to mute?
Yeah, for the best experience of our time, may I mute you as well, or you can mute yourself? Oh, great. So, yeah, so Pastor Kathi is a blessing to me and to you and to our church. So I hope that we will remember our blessing as we share our time this morning as well. Shall we pray? And then I will turn to Terry for introduction part. Let us pray. Gracious God, you are the source of our blessings and the reason for our gratitude. Well, no matter what situation we are faced with. God, we are very grateful for this church and for the time with Pastor Kathi last 5 years. And you truly blessed us with her spiritual encouragement, her leadership, and her time with us. And may this time be another blessing to us. And also may you bless Kathi as she moves on to a new path of her retirement journey in her life. In Christ we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you again for your time here. I want to turn to Terry Morrison, and also I want to change to speaker mode for the best experience of our recording. Terry, will you introduce Pastor Kathi to us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm Terry Morrison, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker today, Pastor Kathi Mcshane, who will share her story of her retirement decision and her retirement plans. And we know that Pastor Kathi will continue to flourish in the next chapter, the latest chapter of her life. Pastor Kathi, we welcome you to Zoom and we welcome you to your golden years.
Thank you, Terry. I have to say, friends, a couple things strike me as odd about this. One is having anything that is called my golden years. Like, I know I'm retiring, but I don't feel quite ready for that. I'm sure you feel the same. Also, just to be a special guest among you feels odd to me. I am so used to being among you every week, just for what has felt to me like different installments of a 5-year conversation. So it's just, I feel like we've been talking together for a long time. And this just feels like one more piece of that conversation. So I thank you for being here. You honor me by being interested in what what my life after LAUMC will look like. And I appreciate that very much. I want to say, just before I start talking about my retirement plans, I want to say a word to you about your pastor, Pastor Jong. Pastor Jong came a year after I did to this church. And he came here because I went to our district superintendent and said, I know who I want to come here. And I had known Jong years ago, many years ago, when he was just starting in ministry. And we were both working in the Sacramento area at churches, different churches. And somehow from that experience, I just knew that he was then, and would be even more by now, this was 2018, that he would be a wonderful pastor. And he has been. And I'm so grateful to him all the time for the work that he does. I say to him, and I will say to you, I couldn't do what I do at this church were it not for Pastor Jong doing his work so well. So I'm even as I leave and I have to let you rest in someone else's hands, I'm really glad that it's this pastor that you have for this gen-to-gen work. And I know you are too. So where you see me sitting right now is, and actually, are we on speaker view? Yeah, or do you have gallery?
I put you on speaker view. Do you want to change to whole gallery view?
No, do a speaker view if you can. Or maybe that's what everybody has to do for themselves. If you go up to the right corner of your screen where it says view and opt for speaker instead of gallery, it's not actually that I want to be bigger on your screen. It's that I want you to see the background of my screen. So if you're there, where I am sitting right now at my dining room table in Paso Robles, in this home that I will be living in as of July. And I thought I might start by showing you a few pictures from here. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll come back and talk about how I got here. So this is the neighborhood I live in. It's, as you can see, it's very rural. And this is a street that is just around the corner from our house, the house that I share with my sister, will share with my sister. And this is my walking route most days. This is another picture I took one day when I was walking at about dusk. This is what a lot of the terrain looks like: big oak trees and hills, and as you can see, it's very agricultural. This is a view from our the back side of our house. This is right out the back door, with big views to the east, southeast, actually. That's a lap pool that you see there in the foreground, which was intended for swimming laps and also is very useful for just floating on warm afternoons. This is where we watch the sunrise most mornings. Yeah. This is my favorite view from the property. This is in the foreground are the grapevines that are part of the property. And then in the longer view, I don't know if you can see that sort of pink house, but it's a house that's really just across the street from us. That's probably the closest house to where we live. And I love it because it makes me think I'm in Italy. This picture is taken from our driveway. This is that same view with more of a focus on the vines. These vines are Cabernet Sauvignon. Another picture. This is I took this because this year we had sheep who we rented. You can rent, who knew? You can rent a flock of sheep to come and help do weed control. So we rented this, or our vineyard manager rented this flock of sheep to come and eat the weeds, and you can see how hard they were working. They mostly laid around all day. I hope they didn't get paid too much for that work because they didn't deserve it. This is the living room. I have my back to this area right now. And it's a big fireplace and a warm space. And yeah, it's very comfortable. And this is the table that I'm sitting at. This is the dining room table where we'll do our community dinners, where I'll tell you more about in just a couple of minutes. And that's my dog Lola, who's there in the bottom lower corner. That's my house. That's where I live, or where I will live. Let me just see. So this is a new move for me. But in June of 2020, right after the pandemic started, I came to Paso Robles for a weekend with my daughter and son-in-law. A weekend away had been their gift to me that Christmas before COVID started. And so we quarantined up and we took care so that we could spend a weekend together at an Airbnb in Paso Robles. And hang on just a second. Sorry, just a second. And while we were here for that weekend, we stayed in this little house that overlooked vineyards. And I thought, this is really so beautiful. I'd never been here, never had wine tasted in Paso Robles or anything. And so I did something that weekend that I never do, which is I looked at real estate listings. I already owned a home in Walnut Creek that I thought I was going to retire to someday, didn't know when. But that day, that weekend, I thought, I don't know, this is a lovely place. Let me just look and see how things look here. So I found this one property. I really wanted to live someplace. I thought if I was going to invest in property here, that I wanted it to be someplace with views. And so I saw online one piece of property that I was interested in. And that Monday morning, as we were leaving town after this very nice weekend, we came to this property and we looked at it. It was for sale. And I liked it. I thought it was lovely, but it was 30 acres. And I thought, yeah, I can't do that. It's too big. It had a vineyard on it. Just not, too much for me to think about. So kind of laid it aside and I came home to Los Altos. And the next week I was telling my sister about this weekend. And I told her about this property. My sister Kirsty lived at the time in San Francisco, and she and I are good friends, have always been, and we've traveled together and imagined at one point, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, that we might retire together on a little farm somewhere. And then we kind of put that idea away. Both went on to do our work. And in that conversation, Kirsty said to me, I would do that property with you. And so I thought, well, maybe we can do it. And we began to look again at this property and at other properties and think more seriously. And about 3 months later, we found ourselves in contract. And so we purchased this property in December of 2020. And Kirsty moved here from San Francisco. She runs a small software business that she could do from anywhere. And since then, she's been here full time, and I have tried to come and join her for a day or two a week as often as I can, anticipating that I would move here after I retire. So that's where we are. And finally, the time comes. I had not made any retirement plans at that point. And what happened for me, and the reason that I set a retirement date pretty quickly after we bought this property, is that it was the first time I began to think, well, maybe there is another chapter in my life that is not about ministry. I have loved being a pastor so much for 25 years. I could never imagine doing anything else. And I used to say, I'm not going to retire until I am quite sure I wouldn't do all the same things for no pay. And so I really thought I was going to retire until I hit mandatory retirement age at 72. But when we got to this property, I began to dream a little bit about some new possibilities. And the first one had to do with this dining room table that I showed you and that I'm sitting at. We bought this table with the idea that we wanted to gather community around it. That every Friday night, and this is still the plan, every Friday night, we will invite anyone who wants to come to a community dinner, just an opportunity to share dinner around this dining room table and to be with people and share conversation about things that matter with people who you don't usually see or talk to or interact with. So, we haven't done that yet because of COVID, but our plan is to begin in August. And we've been keeping the names and phone numbers of our neighbors who are mostly vineyard owners, and the people who work in our vineyard, and the people who have painted and cleaned our house, and people who we meet everywhere we go. And all of you will, as I leave Los Altos, will have an invitation from me to come to dinner any Friday night when you are traveling south and can manage to be here on a Friday night. And our thought is every Friday night, this will be a home for whoever can be here. And I think of this as kind of a new form of church, a different way of, not new, actually, probably very much like the early church started, people sharing meals and sharing their lives together and being in community with people to whom they're drawn by nothing more than wanting to be together, right? No formal membership, no assumption that we are the same in any way other than that we are all people who need each other. So that's my first thinking about retirement, and what really has kind of started our thinking about what retirement might hold. I've had a bunch of other ideas about retirement as well. I'm now keeping a list of them in my journal because the process seems to be that something comes to me and I think, oh, this is exactly what I want to do in my retirement. And it seems perfect to me. Like, this is what my retirement will be about. Seems perfect for maybe 10 minutes or sometimes as long as a weekend. And then it kind of goes away. And sometimes the idea comes back and sometimes it doesn't. But now I'm keeping track of all these ideas because maybe they're taking me somewhere and I don't, and I'm just watching to see. So the truth is, I don't really know what my retirement is going to look like exactly. But I have the sense that it will be some way of gathering community together. And I've thought about, so some of the things that have occurred to me are, I've thought about teaching writing workshops to people who really don't often have the opportunity to speak their thoughts the way I've had the privilege of doing in my career and my life. I think about how much preaching and the invitation to say what I'm thinking out loud to people who are interested in that, how much that has shaped me and has made me a more whole person. And if I can help other people do that, I think I would like to do that. So writing workshops is one of the things I think about. My sister Kirsty is a bread baker. And so we've talked about the possibility of gathering people together around shared breakfasts, maybe opening a little breakfast restaurant, maybe finding in a church or somewhere else a commercial kitchen where we can invite other people to learn bread baking skills. So we'll see. All of this feels like maybe it will happen and that would be exciting, but I don't really have a good picture yet. And then what I do know is what the next year or so, maybe year and a half of my post LAUMC life will look like. I have a contract to write a book with a writing partner, someone who I met through the Changemaker work that I've been doing with you for the last 4 or 5 years. He's a rabbi. His name is Elon Babchuk. He's a millennial, so he's quite a bit younger than I am, and he lives in Rhode Island. And we've been working together in the Changemaker work, actually doing the clergy training piece of that work. And about a year ago, we started to imagine the possibility of a whole different kind of leadership for religious organizations, churches, synagogues, other faith-based organizations. And we developed the idea to having a pretty detailed outline of what a book might look like. And we took it to a publisher and they said, yes, we'd like to publish that book. So now we actually have to do it. So we have a deadline for the first draft of our manuscript, December 1st, and that's pretty much what the next 6 months of my time will look like. I think writing most days, and I find it slightly terrifying and mostly exciting to think about having all those blank pages in front of me, and so that's fun work. And then the other thing that I know I will be doing in the next year is more Changemaker work. The Changemaker work that started at Los Altos has now become a Changemaker church movement throughout the United States, thanks to the generosity of the Lilly Endowment. I think you know, most of you, that Lily has given to the Changemaker Initiative at LAUMC $2.5 million to spread this way of being church around and to expand the movement, which is really, really wonderful. The Changemaker Initiative leadership team at Los Altos will continue to do that work with, and I'll stay involved in it in a less hands-on way than I have been so far. But in addition to that, Princeton Theological Seminary has received another $1 million from Lily to study the Changemaker Initiative and to see what it might offer about how to educate people going into ministry about how to be more innovative and change-making pastors. So in 2023, Karen Kellett of LAUMC and I will lead an 9-month fellowship for pastors around the country that the Princeton Seminary will study and observe to see what implications it might have for theological education. So I'm very excited about that work too. Yeah. Susan, I see you there. Isn't that great news? I love that. Yeah. So it's very exciting work, and I'm looking forward to doing it very much. So I'll stay involved in the change-making work, and I am open to many other things. I will say that the piece that feels pretty unresolved to me, and that I'm still thinking about, is what I will do, and whether I will need to find a way to keep doing some preaching. This is when people ask me, what will I miss about being in the church? That is the thing that comes first to mind. In some ways, some days I feel relieved not to have the pressure of having to create a sermon for every Sunday. But most days what I feel like is I'm going to miss just the process of wrestling with some big idea that every week and talking to you about it. So I don't know, I think maybe should I do a podcast? Will I keep writing? I don't know what that's going to look like. I am fairly sure that I will not work in a church again, but I think there are other forms that work might take. I am absolutely convinced that, especially after the last 2.5 years that we've all gone through together, that God's work happens both in the church and outside the church. And part of what I want to explore in my retirement is the ways God is working, not only in the church, but in partnership with the church in bringing the kingdom of God to life in the world. So I said this, I think, in my first letter to you announcing that I'd retire in 18 months. I want to be a lay person. I want to do what you do, which is to be out in the world and thinking about how does life with God change everything I do, not really solely focused on my work. Yeah. So that's what I planned and wanted to say to you, but I am happy to talk more about anything you want to say or questions. Terry, John, how do you want to spend the rest of our time?
Well, I mean, we can come to our whole group if there's any questions, any thoughts. Before we come to that moment, Kathy, I imagine that you would sit back and relax on a recliner, a cup of glass of wine, and enjoy your sunset view every day. But it sounds like you have active plan for your retirement. I know that Pastor Kathi is one of the five years work with her here at LAUMC. I think she's one of the active, enthusiastic, and purpose-driven pastors. I always admire her work ethics and her passion and enthusiasm. And I believe that she will continue to carry on her spirit and her work after even this retirement time as well. Okay, I will come to you folks, that if you have any question for Kathi, please do so. Just unmute yourself and share your thoughts or question. Yes, Susan, I see you.
Yes, I wonder, Kathy, if you would be able to do some of your work online to share it with us. Like listening to you today has been wonderful, almost as good as if we were in the sanctuary. Not quite, but still close enough. So anyway, for the future, I would hope that we could look forward to seeing you online in some way, in whatever capacity.
Thank you, Susan. That is really one of the gifts of COVID, isn't it? That we now know we can stay in touch in this way. We have far more ways to do that than we thought we did. So yeah, we'll see where it takes us. But yes, I'm entirely open to staying in touch online. And certainly if I figure out a way to keep preaching, you will know.
Great, thank you.
Can I just jump in here? I'm not sure what our process is.
Yes, Mary, you go ahead first, and then we'll come to Judith next.
I want to say to Pastor Kathi, I have enjoyed and been inspired by every one of your sermons. And I would hate to think of you missing writing those sermons. So I would be delighted if you, to picking up on the last idea that was suggested, if you did a short sermon time once a month, or maybe twice a month would be better for me. So I would very, very much appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, Mary, likewise, me too, as a colleague. And but also I learned something every Sunday from Kathy's sermon. I spoke to Kathi as well. I'm learning and very blessed to have hear her sermon every Sunday here as well. Honestly, I'm very afraid that my life and ministry without Kathi here at LAUMC, I was so dependent on her and rely on her too. Well, yeah. Wait, anyone else?
Judith,
Yeah.
Judith, yes. So,
Do you remember way back when you first started and we were having a conversation and you said you didn't know why you were chosen because John was Korean and so are you? And I was just guessing, but I was right. I said, I think she saw something in you that you had more qualities to help her. She needed someone. And I'm so happy that I was right. And you are so confident and so good nowadays.
thank you so much, Barbara. I remember you. Judith, you want to share first?
good to see you, Judith.
Thank you. Good to see you all. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about the winery part of your property, your plans for making wine if you have them and so on.
Oh yeah, thank you. I forgot to talk about that. Yeah, so this 30-acre property has 7.5 acres of planted vineyard on it. And it's attached to another 40-acre piece of property that has even more vineyard on it because these used to be jointly owned. So fortunately for the wine world, I'm not trying to make wine. I know nothing about this. But the 40 acres that adjoins this property is owned by a winemaker, a winery in Texas, actually. The name of that winery is Heath, Heath Vineyards. So what they do is harvest the grapes from this property here, and they crush here, and then they ship the juice to Texas and make wine there. So I'll tell you a funny story. So our vineyard is under management. The vineyard managers do everything that is necessary to take care of the vineyard, which I'm very grateful for. So basically, I just live next to it. But when we first got here, I thought, we should have some wine from our own vineyard. So I went online to the Heath Vineyards Wine Club, and I thought I'll join their club to get wine from our own vineyard every time it's delivered. But they don't give you prices in those wine clubs, right? They bill you after the box comes. So the first shipment of 6 bottles of wine came, and the bill was shocking to me. I can't afford to drink the wine from my own vineyard. So I canceled the club membership immediately. And when we renegotiate that lease on the vineyard, it will include wine, but right now it doesn't.
Thank you.
Okay, Sue, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on the idea. Kathy, we just love your Monday Bible study and just the kind of talk that comes out of our thoughts. And I want to follow up and say, any time that you would like to schedule just your thinking or things that you're thinking about or things that you would include in a sermon or just things that inspire you, we would love to hear about that. And, you wouldn't have to spend hours and hours creating any sermon. You could just say, here's what I'm thinking about today or this week. And we would love to hear that. So if you could incorporate that to your schedule, as you're writing this book, that might be interesting to just hear about your process or your ideas. And we would love to hear anything you have to say. So,
well, thank you. This does feel like a moment when I should remind you all and me that, the United Methodist Church has a pretty strict rule about pastors not coming back for a year after they leave, either because they're reappointed somewhere else or their retirement. Now, we may not obey that rule strictly because your new senior pastor, Dave Samuelson, and I have a really wonderful relationship, and he's generous and kind. But the reason for that rule is to give you all a chance to connect, to make a deep connection with your new pastor. And I so think that Dave is the right next senior pastor for this church. I want that to happen, and I will do whatever I need to do to help you all make that connection. But I hope, and I'm pretty confident that he will feel the same, that there will be ways for both of us to add our whatever we have to offer all of you. And I'll look for that. Thank you, Sue.
Oh, I can ask him today. I'm sort of in between Kathy and David Samuelson today, because now we are having a session with Kathy, and in the evening, Pastor Dave Samuelson and his wife invited all our ministry team come together for dinner together. So I'm sort of feeling strange and odd in this time. Harry, you want to say something?
Pastor Kathi, do they have many or a Methodist church in Paso Robles?
No, there is not a Methodist church in Paso Robles.
Really?
Oh.
No, there is not. There's a Methodist church in a town called Shandon, which is somewhere between here and Highway 5, and it's pretty small. So no.
Well, I mean, Kathy, as a lay person, you said that you can start with a new Methodist church there, or Methodist churches established by.
So I have to say, John, as I'm keeping this list of what my retirement is going to be about, starting a new Methodist church was not on that list yet.
Just for your thought. Yes, Sandy.
Yeah, so much of what Kathy has said sounds so familiar. You can see my background. That was where we retired to. And it, had what I wanted beautiful views, and you obviously want beautiful views to inspire you. I had a group of nuns that used to come out to our property and sit there and meditate because they enjoyed the view so much. But I've got I can remember several of the former pastors in my life who have published things, have turned to writing in their retirement. And one of them, most recently, she was writing a blog. She's given up on the blog now, but blogs in the universe of internet things and so forth, blogs now are passé. So what's the next thing? I'm not sure.
Tweets.
But,
Yeah.
But I've got a friend who, she and her husband retired to above Napa, and he was an attorney, and now they have a vineyard, and so in their retirement, and they have a vineyard manager and so forth. And it's just another life, and I hope you have a wonderful future going on there.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. Where is that property that we're looking at behind you?
That's in southeast of Fresno.
Huh.
It's above a little town called Orange Cove. And the mountain out there to the north of us is Bear Mountain. This was taken from the top of the mountain. Our neighbor owned the mountain that the picture was taken from, which is called Curtis Mountain. It's in northern Tulare County.
I have a question. What are you going to do with the acreage that's not currently the 7.5 acres that's vineyards?
Yeah. So that's what my dad keeps asking me. When are you going to plant those other acres? No, it's pretty hilly property. And so the rest of the property is mostly filled with oak trees and poison oak, actually. And it's really not plantable. Turns out that the different varieties of grapes like different terrains. We have 11 microclimates on this property. And so in our vineyard, we're growing Cabernet and Pinot Noir and Syrah. And I'm learning all kinds of things I didn't know before. Syrah grapes are always grown in a bowl. So it starts at the top of the hill and then it goes way down because they like big temperature swings. And we're 25 minutes away from the coast. And so we get coastal breezes and fog, and that's what grapes like. And really, I think we probably won't develop the rest of the property. There are some buildable sites on this property. We're actually, our first project will be building a guest house, which I think we will do fairly soon. That's in the long-term dreaming about what we'll do with the rest of it, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
Well, Kathi, you didn't show us chickens, but when our ministry team had a 3 days opportunity there for a retreat, Kathi has, I think, 6. How many chickens?
Four chickens. Oh yeah, I forgot to do a picture of the chickens. I meant to, actually. So the chickens are very well taken care of. And they are here for eggs and never to be eaten, but their names are Nugget, Stir Fry, Piccata, and Cordon Bleu.
You already built a community, sheep and chickens, and
we raised Bob raised chickens once for a while, and we thought we would try to eat one, and so he killed it, and the kids wouldn't eat it. None of us would eat it. So every time after that, whenever we had chicken for dinner, they always had to look in the garbage can for a Foster Farms.
Wrong, I saw Linda Swan's hand up. Linda.
Hi, Pastor Kathi. am out of town, so I've been reading your sermons. And so it occurred to me, would you ever put together all your sermons in a book so that we could go back and read them over the years?
I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mentioned to her too, Kathy.
You know, yeah, so stand by. I've got a little project working on some written parts of my sermons. You know, over the years, I have learned really to write for oral delivery, right? It's and you can probably tell if you're reading my sermons. My sermons are meant to be spoken out loud. So putting them into a book, I might do that. I mean, actually, you know, I have hundreds of sermons now.
We have an
So
Amazon
maybe,
Audible
I don't
too.
know, maybe if you think that, it's hard to imagine they'd have value to anybody, but maybe.
Oh, but they would.
Oh, yes.
They would.
They would.
They would.
Yes, they do.
I can witness that Kathy's sermon is really deep and profound spiritual depth in it. So I think that's really valuable too. As I said, that Amazon has an Audible book too, so you can.
Audible book. That's
Yeah.
Oh, this is John Swan. TikTok is the latest craze, so you can do little TikTok sermons.
But like, and how many? It's like 25 seconds. Is that what that is?
I don't know what the time limits are.
For sermon 25 seconds, maybe not gonna work.
I think isn't it like up to 10 minutes? I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's a TED Talk.
Anyway, no, I think the visual. I agree. Your sermons are meant to be spoken, but there's a way to tie the two, put the sermons with some kind of multimedia.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I think the idea of a podcast is great.
Yeah.
Sounds like we are pressuring you, Kathy. So don't be lazy and do more work after retirement.
I have a.
You don't have to do anything. All of the sermons were recorded.
That's true. That's
All
true.
you have
Mary.
to do is extract them and create a library.
That's a
You
great.
can put them all on YouTube. They'd
Or
get
have-
millions of hits.
For you.
Millions, no doubt.
Mary.
Mary.
I have it for you, Kathy. Back to the church now. And his family in Jose have been getting rescue chickens from a place in, I think it's in Sonoma, and these are chickens who are all egg layers, but they get, when they're about a year and a half old, then they get sold for dog food. Okay, so there's a family that rescues these chickens. They've got about 1,000 chickens, and then they vet the families that adopt the chickens. And the chickens, when they come, you get 4 or 5, maybe whatever you can handle. They're very weak. Their legs are very weak because they haven't been out and walking around. So you take care of them. But when they got their first 5 chickens, within an hour, 1 or 2 of them had laid eggs. Anyway, they find that when they have enough good treatment, then they get fluffed up and they get their feathers and their legs get strong, and they keep laying for quite a while. And then they live to die of something else, not being. So anyway, I think that's a great ministry, and I just want to suggest that for some of your acreage.
Well, thank you, Mary. A rescue chicken farm. I love it.
Anytime.
I think I forgot to mention that the name, we named this place Thankful Family Farm. Thankful with 2 Ks because Kathy and Kirsty both begin with K. So, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
I think
Sandy, go ahead.
I think the foxes on your 30 acres would love the rescue chicken ranch.
Yes, we have to be careful about those. So the vineyard properties, this also is new to me. They're very carefully fenced because deer like to eat grapevines. But we have lots of turkeys and other kinds of birds that do come on the property. And we have a bobcat on this property that comes around every once in a while. And we watch the chickens carefully when they're out of the coop, mostly for vultures. Yeah, but coyotes too, I think, can get through that fence. Yeah.
Maybe double fence it, because we had friends who had chickens, and I think the chickens came to the fence, and somehow or another, was it a fox or raccoon, got them. They're not the smartest animals in the world, so have to be very careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a question. You mentioned journaling, and I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit. You know, do you have a certain time of day that you journal, or certain topics, or how long do you spend journaling?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I've been a journaler for a long time. And I don't do it every day, although maybe I will in retirement. I would love to. But I'm a morning writer always. My sermon writing, my journaling, all my writing is in the morning. My brain just works differently at the end of the day, or not at all sometimes. So, and you know, and I just keep it in. I keep it in books, and I have them going back to college. I think all the time about burning them because they're not meant for anyone else's reading. But yeah, it's a great way for me to form my thoughts, is journaling, right? It's a form of prayer for me, as well as self-reflection. And it just gives me different perspective to write things down. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Oh, my experience with journaling is that I keep thinking about whether I should destroy them, and I've had people say, don't do it. So my conclusion is to leave them in some place that says, after I'm dead, you know, you can wait 5 years and then have them, because it is a historic record of a time that you lived. So I encourage you not to destroy them because I'm a history major and I really value history. So
it is an odd thing, don't you think, Marcia, to think about whether your own life might be is part of history, right? I think the same thing, you know, so my sermons, I not only have them in my electronic files on my computer, I have binders, and now many, many, many binders of the manuscripts of my sermon. And I've been thinking about, am I going to move those from my office to the vineyard? Why am I keeping these?
Yes, you should keep them. I'm a historian. Please keep them.
Yeah, I probably will, just for my own history. Yeah.
Well, friends, our time is coming to an end. Maybe you have another, I mean, the last chance, if you really want to speak and ask any question for Kathi, just raise your hand. I just want to make sure that we are all good to go.
I am so envious of the views you are drawing and describing, and the exposure in the countryside. I wonder, Kathi, as you enjoy this splendor, moments of reflection might be an idea to dial your number, what your reflections on this day or this week have been. I wonder, so that you share your thoughts that you've experienced. Just an idea.
Thank you, Lori. I really, and you all the things you've said about my sharing my thoughts going forward, I feel humbled by them. I am curious. This is going to be, I think, the big change in my life is, what do I do with all these thoughts now when I am not in a position that has sort of this group of people who is by my profession sort of waiting to hear my thoughts, right? It's really, I have as long as I've been a pastor, my role has been to speak to people who are there to hear, who are gathered to hear what I have to say. And once that is not true, who will I be? I'm very curious about this next part of life that comes in that way. So thank you for asking that.
Yes, thank you. Maybe Sue, Hope, maybe.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time with us today and sharing your future. You've been such a vibrant force within the church, but for the last couple of years during the pandemic, I was really reflecting on this the last couple of years, thinking about your retirement, that it's been such a solid moment to be able to have the church, yes, online, Zoom, whatever, but you're right, the connections have been able to remain throughout that time. And you and the entire ministry team have been just great forces throughout that. And we will be forever grateful to have had you during the COVID period of time. And the entire team was just marvelous during COVID, but it'll be really great that you were able to move forward with us during that time and share that period of time with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And I want to say back to you all as this congregation, the church has changed, not just our church, but the church has changed in these few years. And I think in many ways, that time away from the church's usual activities has been long enough that it's almost like starting over. And I am so really grateful and moved by the way this congregation has stayed connected to one another and to sort of this common work that we're about in the church. And I just want to say good work, all of you. It's not been obvious. Nobody had to do this. Being outside of the regular routines of being together on Sundays has been a big change, and you've all done it. And I'm really grateful to have been part of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We had 88 high peak number, almost 100 people, just want to exaggerate a bit. But I mean, that really showed how much Pastor Kathi is loved and respected by us. And we are so honored to have her last 5 years. And no doubt, Pastor Kathi gave us such a great impact, meaningfully and memorably. So I'm sure that you all agree to this, that Kathi nurtured our soul and spiritually, relationship-wise as well. So I'm sure that even after retirement, she will continue to do something more meaningful and memorable for our community in Paso Robles and nationwide as well. So we look forward to that as well. And also, don't get me wrong, Pastor Kathy's last day is not today. She will continue to preach till June 5th. And then at the end of June, she will still stay here as a responsibility. She still carries on through the June. But such sadness that we have to say bye to Kathi, and it's sort of a big grieving of our separation as well. So I want to share this blessing as we adjourn together, the Iona community blessings till we meet again. So I want to share this one for a part of our blessings as we go. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly on your field. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. Thank you, everyone. Go in peace. I really appreciate your time, and Kathi as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kathy.
everybody. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's great.
Great job.
Very special.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I have to make sure that all things are recorded properly here. So I just a little bit nervous about that, but thank you all. Go in peace.
Thank you.
Bye, John and Kathi.
Thank you.